I never thought I'd see the day when they actually do the Spider-Man-Batman crossover. I mean, it didn't actually happen, but he had Killer Croc in this movie, so it was kind of close. We're talking... That's a shitty way to open, but I can't think of anything better. We're talking about The Amazing Spider-Man here today. Joining me as usual, Michelle.
Hello.
I'm Aaron. You might recognize us from Speak, Scream, Pups, Speak. We're just going to give you a little review of our take on it, and I gotta start, before we begin, I have to put the disclaimer out there that, you know, just to let everybody know where I'm coming from. I am a huge Spider-Man fan. He has been the guy I've been reading non-stop ever since I started reading comics when I was 12. Like, to this day, I still pick up the Amazing Spider-Man comic book. So, I went into this wanting it to be good, and, you know, a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, are you liking it more because you're a fan of Spidey? Are you not liking it as much because you were disappointed and you wanted it better? And the truth of the matter is, I don't know, because I think that both those kind of play a factor in this. So, I think that as we talk, you'll be able to understand where my opinion comes from. Let's just start off by saying, you know, story of Amazing Spider-Man. Peter Parker gets bitten by a genetically altered... Damn.
Spider.
Fuck, how did that skip my head?
Spider-Man got bit by a what? Gee, I don't know, a mosquito?
Yeah, fuck, I just got done telling everybody that I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, and I forget the thing that bites Spider-Man to turn him into the Amazing Spider-Man. I can list off alphabetically every Spider-Man villain and supporting cast member. I forgot he gets bitten by a spider. Peter Parker gets bit by a genetically altered spider. He's got a crush on this girl, Gwen Stacy, at school. She's working for Oscorp, which is where he finds the spider. When Peter was a kid, though, his dad also worked for Oscorp, worked with a man named Kirk Connors. Peter doesn't know what his dad was working on. All he knows is that one night he just disappeared. His mom disappeared too, and before going, they dropped him off to stay with his Uncle Ben and his Aunt May. And now, you know, it's 12 years later, however many years later, Pete's now a 17-year-old high school student, played by the 30-year-old Andrew Garfield. So, Peter Parker gets bit by the spider, gains spider-like powers. He finds out that Gwen Stacy's dad is the chief of police. I'm sorry, not chief of police, he's the captain. He's Captain Stacy, played by Dennis Leary. And he's out for Spider-Man. He is out to capture this vigilante. But meanwhile, Kirk Connors tests his own formula on himself, his own animal hybrid formula. It ends up turning him into this giant lizard creature that wants to transform everyone into a lizard. And that's basically what the story is. I'm going to say, you know, the main thing everybody wants to know is how does this stack up to the Sam Raimi trilogy? And I got to say, it's not as good as Spider-Man 2. I liked it more than Spider-Man 1. Not as much as when I saw Spider-Man 1, the original Spider-Man, in theaters, I was blown away. I absolutely loved it. But, you know, I was a 17-year-old kid at the time, and now that I know more about film, but also, back then, superhero films hadn't yet really been done right. We were still in that age when superhero films were supposed to be campy. If you made a serious superhero film, people would look at you like, what the hell are you doing? Now, we live in a different age, when if you make a campy superhero film, that's when people look at you like, this is not the 90s, what are you doing? We now look at superhero films as an actual form of film. So, they do have to step their game up, and so yeah, I did not come out of the theater as excited as I did when I saw the first Spider-Man, but I can now see all the flaws with the original Spider-Man, and I gotta say, I think this one was better.
I noticed you didn't mention Spider-Man 3 at all, and for reasons.
Yeah, fuck.
I don't think we ever need to bring up why we don't need to put that on in our favorite Spider-Man movie list.
A movie that starts with a Deus Ex Machina right off the bat. How does he get the Vim symbiote? Fucking a meteor comes down, I don't know. Whatever, just go, roll it. But as I said, I did really enjoy this film, but it is flawed. It does have its problems. The strongest pro, I'd say, for it, though, is the cast. Mm-hmm. I absolutely love this cast. Andrew Garfield plays Spider-Man. Emma Stone plays Gwen Stacy. When I first saw that Emma Stone was going to be in this movie, I just naturally assumed she was going to be Mary Jane, not because, Mary Jane is most commonly known to be Spider-Man's big love interest, because Gwen Stacy was his high school sweetheart. She was the main squeeze of his life. She was the girl he was going to love and be with forever. That's not why. It's because Emma Stone has already played Mary Jane in every other movie she's ever done. Emma Stone is Mary Jane. She's the redhead party girl. But I gotta say, I was shocked at how well she pulled this off. Gwen Stacy was always the girl next door. And the girl who could kind of be a little bit of a nerd just like Peter. And Emma Stone totally captures that in this film. She makes the audience, fall in love with her too. She captures that feeling of, oh, I like this girl, and oh, she kind of likes me too. This is the greatest feeling ever. I really dug that. Denis Leary, I thought, was doing a great job as, you saw the different sides of him as, the firm police captain, the loving father. I really enjoyed seeing that. And I really like Martin Sheen as Uncle Ben. This is one of the best interpretations of Uncle Ben that I've seen, because, like in the Sam Raimi one, he's really just there to be this old, friendly guy who dies, and gives Tobey Maguire a reason to become Spider-Man. In this film, no, he's giving Peter some tough love, but also you get a feeling like they do have like a friendship. Like he's, Uncle Ben's supposed to be a father figure in here, and you could say he's a father figure, but I got it was more of just the father who could be your friend as well. Like, you saw them almost on the same level at points. Like, they were just kind of being buddy-buddy. And, you see a big difference in this Uncle Ben when that he tells Peter, he doesn't actually say with great power comes great responsibility.
Right.
But he basically says the exact same thing. He basically says...
He gets the message across without that actual sentence, because it would have been forced if they had put it in this movie. It really would have felt forced. It would have been like too much like the Tobey Maguire movies.
Which, yeah, but that, and also it just didn't fit in the context of what they were talking about in this movie. But he finds a way of saying, you have a responsibility to do whatever you can to help others. Mm-hmm. That wasn't the exact line that he says, but he says something similar that fits in the moment.
Yeah,
and when you see the burglar coming to kill Uncle Ben with the gun, he drops the gun. Uncle Ben dives for the gun, which shows that Uncle Ben is a man who practices what he preaches, which serves as a great example for why Peter would go out and become Spider-Man, why he would go out and be a hero, because he has this role model there to show him what to do.
Yeah, and I just want to point out that all the people who complained that the trailers made Peter Parker look emo, all those scenes were after Uncle Ben died, so he wasn't being emo, he was just mourning.
He was in mourning,
yes.
Exactly. Like, some people were saying, oh, well, Peter comes off like a jerk in this. Peter comes off like a guy who doesn't really have any friends in high school because he's always within his own head, which is what Peter Parker was. And, some people were saying, oh, yeah, well, he was acting like a jerk after he got his powers. Yeah, that's why Uncle Ben had to give him the great power, great responsibility speech. That's been in every origin of Spider-Man ever. He gets the powers, acts like an ass, and then, Uncle Ben sets him straight. Peter goes, whatever. Then Uncle Ben dies and he goes, oh, fuck, it's on me now. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I really like about this film is that they realized that, let's not mix words here. The reason why they made this movie was not because, oh, superheroes are really popular right now with the Avengers, we gotta get in on that. It's because if Sony did not make another Spider-Man film within a certain period of time, they would lose the license for Spider-Man, and Disney would get it back. And there was no fucking way they were letting that happen. So yeah, we're not blind to this. We know Sony made this film solely at this moment to keep the license. But they realized, hey man, that last one is still in everyone's mind. We can't just do the exact same thing again. I mean, I was looking at Rotten Tomatoes, and I'd say about a fifth of all the negative reviews are, did we just see this happen? So yeah, they couldn't do it. But they retell his origin in such a different way, while still hitting all the notes. Like, Peter doesn't, go out to become a professional wrestler this time, and he gets cheated on that, so he lets the so he lets the burglar go. But they do come up with another way to show him letting the burglar go in this scene. Peter they don't do the organic web shooters, they do the mechanical web shooters, which that actually falls into one of the negative sides that I'll save for later. They don't do Mary Jane, they do Gwen Stacy. Uncle Ben serves a much larger role in this film. And
and that just makes the death more dramatic.
It really does.
He's not really expendable like he was in the...
You point out something really good, because even though, like I said, when I watched that first one, I was enjoying it more simply because I was like, yay, Spider-Man on the big screen! I don't know why I talked like that when I was 17. But yeah, when I was watching... You always
talk like that when you're excited.
I do. But even back then when I was watching, I was like, yep, sorry, Uncle Ben. In this one, there's a moment where Peter gets a phone call, and it's not, Uncle Ben isn't dying in that scene, but I assumed he was. I just went, oh no. And it's like, and he doesn't die in that scene. It comes a few scenes later. And when it gets to that scene, I'm just like, no, please let him die at, the end of the movie so I can enjoy him more. I felt it when Uncle Ben died in this one. I really enjoyed that.
You knew it was gonna come, but you still didn't want it to happen because he was such a well-developed character.
It really was, and I absolutely love that. One that I kind of gotta go negative on, though, is... what was it? Sally Field, I think? Sally Field as Aunt May, which I think is a good choice. And I like what they were doing, where it was kind of basically it seems like the idea of it was, Peter's dad, Richard Parker, was Ben Parker's brother. So Uncle Ben was always like, hey, this is my nephew, I gotta take care of him. Aunt May, she married into the family, so because of that, she always kind of never, in the comics... Well, there's two interpretations of the comics. There's the regular Marvel comics, and then there's a line that they launched about 10, 12 years ago at this point called the Ultimate line, in which they tried to say, hey, this is what the comic would be like if it happened today. If it did not have all this backstory, if it was just starting fresh. And in the main Marvel universe, yes, Spider-Man and Aunt May was always super loving, always there. In the Ultimate line, it was a far more realistic, oh shit, I'm married into this family. I don't really know this kid, and now I'm taking care of him, but I still love him. I don't know how to talk with him. And that's kind of what they were going for on this. But it seemed to me like they just forgot about Aunt May for the entire last third of the movie. She just disappears, it seemed to me.
Yeah, it's like they flipped it around compared to, the first Spider-Man movies. Uncle Ben was, underdeveloped, and they focused more on the relationship between Peter and Aunt May. In this one, they focus more on his relationship with Uncle Ben, and Aunt May's just kind of in the background or something, so it's like... Yeah,
we'll get a little bit more into that a little bit later, but, as I said, my favorite thing about this is the acting. You do see these characters acting the way that I, as a diehard Spidey fan, I was like, whoever wrote this, and, Mark Webb, the director... They got it. They know Spider-Man. Yes, I know. The guy who directed this last name is Webb. Yes. I just looked over at Michelle, and I knew the words that were coming out of her mouth. She opened her mouth to say, the guy who directed this is named Webb. Yes, we all get that. Let's put that aside. But yeah, I was watching this going, this is the kind of guy I like. And there's going to be a lot of people who go, Spidey's not mopey. He's not, he's not angsty like this. He was when he was in high school. He was right after he got his powers. It took him a while before he started going, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to get out of my head and start making friends with people. And at the very end of this movie, this whole movie is the origin story. Mm-hmm. And at the very end of this movie, yeah, he and Flash Thompson, which, by the way, I like that they actually kind of try to develop Flash Thompson in this. He and the boy, Flash Thompson, are now kind of like, yeah, hey, man, how's it going? They're not really friends, but they are kind of like, you're okay. And it's because Peter is now starting to develop. Mm-hmm. And as I said, there are a couple scenes in this movie where I was like, it made me feel like they really pegged it. There's a scene where you see, all of New York City kind of coming behind Spidey. And that, to me, Spidey has always been New York's hero. Because he is the guy who, yeah, J. Jonah Jameson will always make people... By the way, that's another thing that I really like about this film. I was so panicking going into this movie. It's like, they can't get J.K. Simmons to come back and play J. Jonah Jameson But he was so perfect. Who are they going to do? They just don't have him in this. They have Captain Stacy be the guy who says Spider-Man is a menace, and I like that. I like that they actually went, yeah, you all know J. Jonah Jameson. Let's develop some other characters. But yeah, Spidey has always been New York's hero because he's the guy who, even though a lot of people are like, oh yeah, he's a menace, they're also the real New Yorkers who are like, no, that's the guy who saved my son. That's the guy who saved my brother. That's the guy who saved me. So there are so many Spidey stories where, when push comes to shove, the city of New York always steps up for Spidey. And I really dug that scene, and the reason why I always loved Spider-Man as a character is because, Superman, he hangs out in a fortress in Antarctica and can fly around the world in the blink of an eye. Batman is a millionaire. Green Lantern works with the space cops. Spidey is the guy who tries to pay his rent. He is an average Joe, and that's what I always liked about Spider-Man. He's the average Joe, and yet he still tries to do good. And it kind of is the message that there's good in all of us, that we could all do that. And there is a scene in this movie where I started tearing up because they nail it so perfectly. You've all seen the scene if you watch the super extended trailer, but it's where he's trying to get a kid out of a car that's toppling over the side of that he's holding up over the side of a bridge, and the kid is freaking out, and Spidey just whips off his mask and goes, "No, I'm a regular guy. Look, it's just me." And then, he hands the kid the mask to try and comfort him, and he has to have the kid crawl up to him in order to get to safety, and he's talking the kid through it, going, "No, you can be strong. You can. Come on."
I like how he says, "Oh, the mask gives you superpowers," because that would explain. That to the kid would explain why he's able to do all the things he can. You can't really. You don't really have time to explain to a kid, oh, he got bit by a radioactive spider and all that.
But also, the kid is scared. So,
yes,
it shows Peter, Peter is the guy who's always in his head. This to me, is a great scene of showing the persona of Spider-Man forcing Peter to kind of come out of his shell and actually, relate to someone, even if it's just this little kid. Because Peter, to me, has always been the exact opposite of Clark Kent. Superman is this big cool guy who pretends to be a nebbish little nerd. Peter is a nebbish little, guy who's always inside his own mind, who puts on a mask and pretends to be cool. And I thought that was another great thing about that scene, is that it shows Spider-Man actually, it shows Peter actually kind of going, hey, if I'm going to be this hero, I got to get out of my head. I got to, actually talk to this kid here. And I really dug that. Any other because that was most of the real high points for me. Any other high points that you want to talk about?
Well, like you said, when the citizens of New York help Spider-Man, it's like saying, even superheroes need help, and even though you don't have powers or you can't fly, you don't have super strength, you can help, you can contribute, and every little bit helps. So
it really reminded me of in Spider-Man 2. The scene where he's on the subway and they're all lifting up and they all stand up to Doc Ock and say, "You gotta get through us."
And he's like, "Okay."
Yeah,
that kind of ruined it. But
it was the thought that counts. But yes, it reminded me of that scene. It wasn't as good as that scene. The scene where all the New Yorkers help Spidey out. It wasn't as good as that scene. But I still, like I said, that scene on the bridge, that to me is the best summary of who Spider-Man is on film that I've seen. Any other pros that you want to talk about?
I don't know. I mean, I thought it was a good film. I didn't really read the comics as much as you did.
Yeah, which is why I'm glad that you're here. Because like I said, I'm coming from such a Spidey fanboy point that, like I said, I was kind of tearing up at that scene because that to me, that's Spider-Man. That is it right there. But I don't know. But there are so many moments in this film, which we're now getting to the negatives. There's so many moments in this film in which I went, oh, I understand that because I understand Spider-Man. I understand the Lizard. I understand these characters. I honestly don't know if people who have not read the comics understand a lot of the stuff that went on in this movie.
I can understand, like you did explain to me, the Amazing Spider-Man takes on the plot of the alternate Spider-Man universe.
The Ultimate Universe, yeah.
The Ultimate, sorry.
Yeah. I'm the nerd here, yeah.
Whereas, the original, trilogy movies were based on, the Spider-Man plot we all know about. So, yeah, it is interesting that I don't know. It's like I said, I don't know if like how many people who are not into Spider-Man would get it, but I think they'd still enjoy the movie. Like they'll probably think, oh, this is the directors doing their own take on Spider-Man, not realizing it actually did happen in the comics.
Yeah. Yeah, now we're talking about some of the negatives, and to me, one of the biggest negatives in this is the editing and the pacing, because there are so many moments in this movie where they're just like, where the pacing is just so weird. It's like, alright, the lizard finds proof that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. Very next scene, lizard's in Midtown High. It's like, that was fast. It's, or like, like I said, Aunt May seems to just disappear from the movie for a long period of time. Or there's a guy who's working for Norman Osborn. And I was like, I want to see a little bit more where this is going. He just drops off. We're never seeing him again.
I was hoping, like, there'd be more scenes of, Spider-Man, being witty and snarky, like, we all know and love, but...
Which, I did like that they actually put that in here.
Yeah, but it seemed like it was forced in, like, those little one-liners, or...
There's two big moments to me where it's, there's a couple of scenes really do, but, like, yeah, the car thief scene, which we've all seen in the trailers, that one is kind of weird because... It's at this moment where Spidey is, like, going out for vengeance, because he's trying to find the guy who killed his Uncle Ben, and he's being all, like, playful and goofy with the webbing, and then all of a sudden he just gets super serious, and he goes, alright, and, like, he gets... It just seems so... It did make that seem forced, because it didn't seem like he was the playful part then, but, like, there's a moment where he's fighting the lizard in Midtown High, and I thought he was being pretty, witty there. I thought it worked in that scene. Or, like, when he's telling the kid, and he says, alright, kid, can you hurry up? And he's holding up the, I thought, yeah, that kind of is the kind of wit that Spidey has.
I actually thought the funnier parts was when he just got his powers, and he's still trying to get used to his strength.
Yeah. Which, honestly, that was one of the few problems that, that's one of the areas where I would say the original Spider-Man movie is superior to this one, is that in the original one, you see the powers kind of, like, slowly come out, and, like, you see the tiny hairs start to spring out of Spidey's finger so you know what's allowing him to clean the walls. And, like, they do explain his spider sense in the original. There's, like, really no explanation of what Spidey's powers are in this. You just kind of go, okay, well, he's, like, he just suddenly uses all of his powers at once.
Yeah.
And it's, like, kind of this, like, the moment that he does is on the subway, and it's kind of this goofy scene, and it's, like, it didn't really work for me.
I thought it was just funny, but yeah, as far as, like, explaining or, like, moving the story along, it didn't really do anything. It was just mostly there for laughs.
Yeah, and, I mean, a lot of it seemed like they were trying to go, okay, you guys already know this. You guys saw the last one. We're not going to, we realize that we're retelling the origin. We're going to speed ahead. And like I said, there were some things, like, skipping his wrestling career, which I was like, okay, that's fine. Not including J. Jonah Jameson. I was like, okay, that's fine. Because they were like, yeah, you saw in the last one. But kind of skipping over his powers, that kind of hurts it as a standalone movie.
It's like you need to, there are some things you need to explain, like, you don't want to talk down to the audience, but at the same time, you have to pretend that some of them don't already know. Yes, they don't know about Spider-Man, and so you have to explain to them without like talking to them like they're idiots or anything.
Yeah, like they kept it so Spidey one of Spidey's powers is his spider sense, which is this tingling feeling he gets in his head when he senses danger is approaching, and it helps him, to dodge attacks and things like that. They keep that in here, but it is never once mentioned, and that was kind of a problem I had, because if you don't read Spidey, you have no idea why there's a weird buzzing noise on the screen, and Spidey then is able to, like, catch a football that's flying at him without him actually seeing it. Or, like, why there might be a quick flash on screen, and he can then dodge a punch. There's no explanation for that, and I know that a lot of people who don't read Spidey, and who didn't really follow the first one, which it's kind of glazed over in the first one, but at least they do kind of say, some spiders have a spider sense that they use that allows them to avoid danger, which is not true at all. In fact, there was a writer, J. Michael Straczynski, who back in the 90s, I want to say, actually got a job on Spider-Man. He used to write for Babylon 5, for anybody who was a fan of that show. he got a job writing for Spidey, and he actually finally approached and said, yeah, there's no such thing as Spidey sense in other spiders. It makes no sense why you have this. And he actually created an explanation for why he has it, and it was brilliant. But I'm not saying they should have done that in this film, but there should have been some kind of an explanation. Like in the first one, they at least give you some kind of an explanation for it. In this, there's no explanation, and it seems weird. And like, like I said, he's got mechanical web shooters in this. And I like that because in the first one, it was more like, hey, this is a campy superhero film. In this one, they're trying to play it more, Spidey is a science nerd. And his villains come from science. And his parents' mystery comes from science. So him actually building a web shooter, it works. And like they set up that, Osborn was trying to create this web fluid thing. Fine, that totally works for me. They set it up. But you see Spidey building this little gadget, you see him shoot a little web out of it, and then you never see it again. And to me, I was looking at that going, if you asked me to draw Spidey's web shooters from the comic, yeah, I could do it, because I've seen it. Well, actually, I couldn't, because I'm a horrible artist, but you could. You could, you're a good artist.
Thank you.
But if I told you, draw what Spidey's web shooter looked like in this movie, do you honestly think you could?
They looked like wristwatches, or like...
like, I didn't even really, see,
They looked like a cross between, the sweatbands you put on your wrist and, but with, a little watch in it, and that's where the web comes out.
And I didn't... Yeah, exactly. And also, one big part of, Spidey's web shooters is, he activates them by pressing down with his middle 2-digit fingers, and it's never once explained why, it's never once explained why in this movie him just tapping it caused it to come out, but him forming a fist doesn't cause it, and I know that people who don't read the comics are going to look at that, there's going to be at least a couple people looking at it going, hey, wait a second, why is this, they're going to point that as a flaw. It's no, it's explained in the comics. With, one sentence they could have explained it in this, and they just didn't do it, and... another thing that they really skip over is the Lizard. His big villain in this, Kirk Connors, takes the formula to try and regrow his arm, turns him into this big lizard creature. He takes the formula, it causes him to regrow the arm, and then he immediately starts turning into a lizard. I would have liked to have seen, a little bit of, hey, the formula worked. 2 days later, I'm not feeling so good.
Yeah, but at the same time, it was, rushed. There was, a reason why he had to rush, because, the big business guy took the formula.
Oh, there was a reason why he had to, rush to it, but I'm saying that it's, he didn't have to turn into the lizard, that night. It could have been more of, hey, it worked, you don't have to go off with that formula now, we can relax on this, and then, slowly see it start to affect him. And, yeah, that's one of my problems, is that you see Kirk Connors, after he takes the formula, he's now got, he's now going, yes, I must use this formula on the world, and he's totally lost in this. And I, as someone who reads the comics, knows, yes, it's because the formula affects the lizard part of his brain, which is just that basic need that we all have, that primal part of our brain. It was, the cold, logical part of our brain, and that's what was doing it to him. It was kind of doing this. In this, it's, there's no explanation for it at all. It's just an instant, really nice guy, takes the formula, total asshole. It really was kind of choppy pacing, and it took me out of it several times.
I was getting Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde vibe, because when he was he was in his human form, he seemed pretty okay, but once he goes into his lizard mode, because he wants he wants his arm back, obviously. Yeah. Then he starts going insane and everything.
Yeah, but even in Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, they explain, oh, it's affecting the aggressive part of his brain, and this is just which I think that a lot of people are going to see it as that way, and they'll be okay with it because that is such a part of our culture, the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde trope.
Yeah.
It's all a story that we all know.
Mm-hmm.
But I still kind of worry that, a lot of people are just going to kind of see that and just go, wow, he was an asshole all along. No, it's this thing affecting him. All right. But overall, aside from just, really shitty pacing and editing... It's, not even shitty. I'm not even going to go that bad, because it's not that bad, I don't think.
Mediocre, would you say?
It's a little below mediocre, honestly, I'd say, because mediocre is, oh, I didn't really notice it, but I guess it's, alright. This one's no, it's drawing my attention to it, with its pacing and everything.
I was just, there's just one thing I want to bring up. I don't know if, you might have some insight to this, since you know Spider-Man, better than I do. like when Lizard goes back to his human form and like he sheds all the scales and everything, and I noticed that like a lot of little actual animals, the lizard animals crawling around New York City. I'm wondering, is that from like him? Did he shed his skin? Did he shed his lizard skin and all the little lizards came crawling out of it, and then when he goes back into his lizard form, he kind of summons them back? Or
I am so glad you brought that up, because that was another big problem I had. Like when I was saying, they were skipping over a bunch of stuff that, I know what it means because I read the comics, but someone else, I don't know what they'd go. That was one of the big ones I almost skipped over. I almost forgot about. Yeah, you see a lot of like little lizards start to gather around like the sewers, which, by the way, let me point something out here that I just kind of like, it did kind of take me out. Kurt Connor sets up a second lab in the sewers after he becomes the lizard. How the fuck did he get that lab into the sewer?
Also, how did Peter Parker get a cell phone reception in a sewer, but I can't get anything in a subway?
Seriously, that was... I was like, that's the most illogical thing in this whole fucking movie, is that he's playing Angry Birds down in the sewer. This is bullshit. Which, that's the scene that I like, actually seeing Peter sitting around in the sewer waiting for the lizard to show up.
He actually got a call from Gwen Stacy in the sewer.
He did, and
I'm calling bullshit on that.
That is bullshit. But no, yeah, the thing about the lizard is that one of his powers is that he can kind of like, he's like Aquaman, but with lizards. He can kind of like communicate with lizards. In fact, they recently did something great with the lizard in the comics, in this story arc called Shed. For anyone who wants to get into the comics and wants to go, hey, I want to learn more about the lizard, Shed is a great story in which basically the lizard wins. The lizard takes over Kurt Connors, kills Kurt Connors, and basically fully takes over the body. And then he expands his powers from being able to talk to just lizards to being able to talk to the lizard part of the brain, causing people to riot. It's a great story arc. But anyway, getting back to what you're talking about, sorry, as I said, I am a geek. I have to prove it after fucking up that I didn't know that he was bitten by a radioactive spider. But yeah, getting back to what you're talking about, in the comics, he is kind of like the Aquaman. What Aquaman is to fish, the lizard is to lizards. He can communicate with the lizard brain in actual reptiles. So he was basically just kind of like, they were just kind of like migrating to him, is what it was. I never seen that many lizards in New York before. If he transformed into a mutant rat and he was able to summon rats, that would be more logical. I would understand that, since there's a lot of rats in New York. That's true. I've been living here for 3 years. I have never seen a lizard in New York.
Unless they like broke out of the pet store.
That's kind of what I had to go with on it. That's why I broke out of pet stores, broke out of the zoo. But in that case, like, there'd be like a lot. It would be like in the news, and there'd be like a lot more different types of lizards. If you notice in the movie, they all seem to be like the same kind of lizards. So. I would have loved to have seen. Well, there was like one iguana, but I would have loved to have seen like an actual like alligator down the sewer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm so glad you pointed that out, because that was another one of those I was like, I don't think they really did need to explain this. And one other complaint that I just got. Oh, what were you gonna say?
No, it's like I get he's able to summon lizards. Like when Spider-Man built the web and he sensed the lizards crawling across it and going into the sewer where his lab is, because he transformed and everything. But what I want to know is like where the lizards came from in the first place.
Yes, but I one other thing I gotta point out though is that. They, a lot of people have been saying, oh, well, this was, marketed. They were trying to get, like, the same crowd that goes and sees Twilight. They were trying to get the same crowd that goes and sees these films. The same crowd that goes and sees these films. There's an argument to be made for that. It didn't really ever, like, affect me. While I was watching this, I never, like, once really went, oh, they're trying to get the Dark Knight crowd. Oh, they're trying to get the Twilight crowd. However, Andrew Garfield does kind of look like Jacob from Twilight. And they took every opportunity they could to take that fucking mask off his head. And at first I was like, I don't care. Like, the first time is when he, like, just, drops the mask to the kid. And like I said, I love that scene. I thought it was done great. But then, like, he constantly keeps just taking the mask off, even when he really should not, like, in the middle of the city. And there was a moment, like, right after he fought the lizard in Midtown High, where he was just walking through the abandoned school, no mask on, and there's no reason for him to take it off. Anyone could pop out at any moment and see him.
But he had his spider senses, so he would have been able to sense them.
Once again, I know that. Nobody else fucking knows it.
Also, like, most of the times when his mask was taken off, it was, like, taken off by somebody else.
It was, there's the scene where it's taken off by Captain Stacy, and I liked that scene. I thought it was done well. But, like, even the big final fight scene, he doesn't have it on. It's like, for the big final fight scene, he should look like Spider-Man. The Spider-Man suit should be on him, in my opinion. But, yeah, it was just, that was the main one, when he was just walking through the abandoned Midtown with no mask on. I was like, this is the most reckless shit I have seen.
I know, but it's like, I guess, I don't know if they're, like, trying to, like, go for the Twilight crowd or anything, because he's so handsome that they don't want to obscure his looks or anything. I think it's more like he's human. He does have superpowers, but he's human, and that's why they want to keep the mask off. Because like when he puts the mask on, he seems more alienated. I mean, like
it's a weird mask. Yeah, like the big black eyes is my biggest problem with it. It's that white eyes seem a lot more good, I guess, a lot friendlier. But big black eyes did make him look kind of alien. Yeah.
And like also as the was that Captain Stacy, as he points out, is like he looks like a criminal with the mask on.
Yeah.
Like so that's probably another reason why it's like if he has the mask on, like he's hiding something. It's like you kind of like you don't feel comfortable around him or anything. So that's probably another reason why they keep pulling the mask off. It's like just a reminder. It's like, I'm still the same guy. I'm still human. I'm still trying to do what's right and everything, so.
Yeah, I understand. But, and I will say, it seems to me like they're definitely set up for a trilogy. What am I? Who's fucking kidding on that one? But there is a stinger, like, halfway through the credit sequence. And it's one of those ones in which I know pretty much everyone's gonna hate it. But honestly, when the rest of this trilogy is done, it might be one of those in which I look back on and go, oh, I actually like that. Like, because it might work with him. However, as of right now, it seemed like a huge missed opportunity. Like, they could have done much better things with that stinger. So yeah, I kind of gotta give it some negative points on that. Any other points that you really want to make about the movie before we wrap up?
No, I think we covered most of it, so.
Alright, what grade would you give it then?
I guess a B. B+.
Yeah, I'd give it a B+ myself, because like I said, I really did like it. It's just that editing kept it from ever being able to make it up to an A. But I really do think that they did a lot of strong stuff with this. And to anybody out there, we really do need a rating system specific to like this little thing that we do, like something that goes along like with the screen community as like our rating system. And a lot of people have been telling me, why don't you just use stars? That's what we've all been using. Why don't you just use stars? Because if I had to give this a star rating, it would be 3.75. It doesn't work. I need something with more nuance, something that can give me more room. So yeah, B+ is what I would give it.
I don't know, I was thinking of a rating system like pizzas or something. Like the lowest would be like anchovy pizza, and like the top would be like whatever your favorite topping is. Like middle would be plain. Or...
Yeah, but then there'd be like that asshole out there. I like anchovy pizza.
Okay.
Because I remember one person in the forum actually suggested, how about you do different species of dogs and
breeds of dogs.
Different breeds of dogs, and he said the lowest one could be what was the lowest?
A Chinese crested.
A Chinese crested.
Yeah, Chinese hairless crested.
A Chinese hairless crested, and I said that to you, and you basically just went, that asshole! I like Chinese cresteds, and you like stormed off to your room, and then like 2 seconds after you close the door, you open it back up and go, do you think Chinese cresteds are ugly? No, I don't even know if they are. Fuck. Jesus! No, they're fine. Let's get one.
No.
But yeah, so B+ from both of us. I really dug it. But yeah, it's fire that fucking editor, man. That's all I can say. That's my best piece of advice for the sequel.